October 7th might be just another, to use your language, moment where Britain and Europe continues on its strange death.
Yes.
It's just like add it to the list of the Manchester attacks, London Bridge attacks, Lee Rigby, Reading attacks in 2020, so David Amos.
Yes.
Hartlepool, there was a Asylum Seeker killed a man, a pensioner in Hartlepool.
That was disappeared as a story.
Yeah, that's completely gone.
Yeah.
And it's just another case that we're going to just ignore and kind of continue in our merry way.
I think there's a reason for that, which is the question a politician has said to me in private about that is, well, what would you do about it? Right. What would you do about it? Now, that's a pretty big question to have to answer. One answer I give when people say that is, well, I didn't create this problem. And again, you created a problem and you're telling other people to solve it. Or you're saying it's insoluble, or let's pretend it didn't happen. I mean, I was very struck by, I think you went to the site of the Nova Festival, didn't you? Yeah. I was very struck by the fact that I've spoken to a lot of survivors of the Nova Festival and the families of people who were killed there. And it haunts, of all of the atrocities of October 7th, it's one of the ones that haunts me most, because I sort of think, I know a lot of people who could have been there, not just Israelis, but an international circuit party. I know a lot of people who go to those, and like the ones at the Nova Festival were just incredibly unlucky that they met Hamas that morning. But sometimes people here in Israel have said to me in recent months, what would you do if that happened in your country? And I say it did happen in my country. It happened at Manchester Arena. But what was the British response to it? Much to my fury, what was the British response to it? It was, don't look back in anger. And as I've said many times, I don't see why you shouldn't look back in anger if 22 young girls are blown up by a suicide bomber who'd come with his family from Libya because they'd fallen out with Gaddafi. I don't think that my country should be the retirement home for jihadists who've rowed with Colonel Gaddafi. I think sort it out amongst yourselves. But, we imported that family, and then their son detonated a suicide bombing at an Ariana Grande concert. And the British response was, don't look back in anger. But why was that the response is a really interesting question. And I think the answer is because, again, the question was, what are we going to do about it? I was asked that by a very senior figure in the military, in the media. In that period, because I was furious about the way in which the media was reporting it as well. And this person said, we're missing the public, aren't we? We're missing the mood. What do we do? And I said, yes, you're missing the mood, because you've gone straight on to the kind of one love. Well, that only works if you've dealt with your enemy. And we in Britain just sort of, the inquiry into the Manchester Arena attack discovered that a security guard who saw the bomber thought he was suspicious, saw him acting suspiciously. He was carrying a large rucksack with what turned out to be a large explosive in it. And the reason the security guard didn't report the young man was because he looked Muslim, and the guard was worried he'd be accused of racism or Islamophobia. When people say, why do you care about these things? I say, because it actually kills.
Yeah.
Okay? This so-called political correctness and things, it actually kills.
Yeah.
It's not a harmless pursuit. If there was a more appropriate attitude towards all of these things, a more realistic attitude towards these things, in Britain, in America, in every other Western country, there would be people alive today who are not.
3 of those people are Lucy Lowe, Becky Watson, and Laura Wilson, who were all killed by grooming gangs. They should be household names. Everyone should know their names. George Floyd is a household name. These 3 white British girls who were killed because they were white by the grooming gangs, I even have to look them up.
Right. And the media does very, very little actually in reporting on that. I mean, a friend of mine a few years ago started doing a book on the so-called grooming gangs the rape gangs in Britain, and he actually didn't get around to writing it. He said it was just the whole thing was too depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing he did say to me, which I was very struck by, was he said he thought when he went around interviewing the victims, the thousands of victims of these gangs of mainly Muslim men, he was struck that he thought that the people who were interviewing the victims would be kind of talked out.
Mm-hmm.
Far from it. Nobody had talked to them.
Mm.
The media had never knocked on their door.